Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova University, and my partner, as always, my main man, Sonny Sparrow. How are you, Sonny?
Chuck, I'm great. Pretty excited about tonight. This should be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. I mean, like I said, it's different things. But I got to ask you something first before we get into everything. How are
Okay.
you feeling? We are both on. You can't say the DL anymore because you can't
Hmm.
say disabled, but we are both are on the IL, the injured list. How are you
Well,
doing?
well, I think I need to go on the mentally disabled list right now because I had
Yeah,
knee surgery on a Friday. I went to work Monday, and I was
yeah,
like, I was like, you know what? I did this a few years ago. Well, it was probably 30 years ago.
yeah. Right, right. You're
So,
not 25 anymore, Sonny.
I moved a
I've
little
got news for you.
slow, but I got where I had to go, and I'm moving at the end of the week. I'm like, all right, I got the bandage off, I got the staples out. Let's keep going. You know, next week, okay, and then we got to go take care of some family stuff, and we're away. And I did a ton of walking. I was in agony,
Yeah,
agony. I set myself back at least 2 weeks. I had the crutches out today, man. Huh.
yeah. When you're a doctor like you are, Sonny,
I'm a
you're
horrible
not
patient. You
not
want to say
very
it?
good as a patient. I have to
You want
say.
me to say it first? I'll say it.
No, listen, you and I have talked. I told you. I said if somebody has you pull somebody's tooth
Hey,
out
Bob. Wait,
and you
wait,
give them
wait.
advice, they should listen to you. You're the doctor.
Bob, he was telling me right away, he was like, "You're doing too much. You're doing way too much." I go, "They didn't say anything."
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
but Chuck, you got enough. If he doesn't play, he doesn't get his NLI money. He's done. So you pull it off. So you
right,
can get
that's
back in the
that's
game.
right. Believe me, he's got five
I got some
practices.
no,
He gets
wait a
plenty
second. I
plenty
got
of
some no
NIL
hold
money,
clauses in
Bob. Believe me. So, all right. So without any further ado, Sonny, we
there.
have a different point of view. It's our first Big East athletic director on the show today.
I do. I like how
So
you said that.
from
Like how you said that.
Friartown,
Right.
uh, through Ithaca College, a 1974 grad and Hall of Famer at Ithaca. I'll have you know, Sonny.
Ithaca's in my
Love to talk to you
backyard,
about
man.
that. That's it. Also was at University of California, Berkeley from 87 to 2001, and of course with the Providence College Friars for 21 years. He was also the Under Armour Athletic Director of the Year, Sonny. It's big time, big time. So welcome to the show, Bob Driscoll. How are you, Bob? Good to see you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I couldn't be happier. I told my wife, I said, this is the first podcast I've done in 3 years. I used to be on TV and radio all the time. I said, I hope I remember what I used to do living down here in Florida. But I watched a couple of your shows. I saw the great Ed Cooley on. I watched Kevin Mack. I watched Kevin Willard. And I thought, this feels like yesterday. So I'm ready to go, man. Game day.
So Ed Cooley's one of your guys, I understand. I spoke with, we're close with Harold Starks. Harold and I are the
Love
same
Star.
same year. And we actually played on the Big East select team that went over to Yugoslavia and had a ball
Yeah.
playing again. The only problem was, you know, Harold was one of the best defensive players ever in the Big East until he had to guard a guy named Drazen Petrovic. Then, all bets are off, Bob, at
Yeah,
that
but
point,
then his memory got a little foggy, if I do
His
recall.
memory got very foggy
I
at that
think.
point, but not mine because I remember it like it was yesterday, man. So
Harold's a great man. I worked for, I hired him back at Providence, and I told Harold that he's got a body of an inside linebacker right now. He couldn't play in the Big East, but if you ran into him, you'd be in big trouble.
yeah, he sets a good pick. I'll say that.
Yeah,
He
pick
sets a
and
mean
pop.
pick.
So can I ask you a question, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely, Sonny.
You since you're an Ithaca guy, you follow the Cortaca Cup, right?
I do. I was on with my 129 Ithaca College Bombers celebrating the big victory.
I was gonna ask you, do you know who won just the other day?
I do. I do. I actually, I've got this little executive coaching business I've done, and I was on a committee that hired the new AD, and it's so excited to be reconnected. I went back up for my 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. I still have a lot of friends there. So, yeah, I'm still a bomber. I'm still a bomber. I just love the place. I wouldn't have had the career if I had it wasn't for what I learned there. So, yeah, I'm connected.
I love it. I love it. I don't know how long that tradition has gone on though, the Cortland versus Ithaca. Do you have any idea?
Well, it's as long as I can remember, and I graduated in 1974, and it was a big deal, but we dominated for a lot of years, and then they moved by us. And when I was up there for the Hall of Fame, I went to visit their facilities. They have athletic facilities that are as nice as many Division I programs in the country, and Ithaca's got to catch up a little bit, but It's a great rivalry, I'll tell you that. It's a lot of fun right down the road.
It's heated. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, the two towns.
In every sport too, right, Sonny? I mean, it's not just football. It's every time
Uh,
they play, it's a big rivalry, right?
but they don't typically meet. Like Ithaca's in the Liberty League now, right?
Right.
So
Oh,
they don't
okay.
typically play unless they have non-league games.
Well, next year they're going back to Yankee Stadium. They go down every 4 or 5 years and they sell that out. And it's a big deal for a branding of two
Wow.
institutions, especially a school like Ithaca, which is driven based on admissions. But when you're on national television with that Yankee Stadium, it's a big deal for Division three school program,
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Well,
So
especially since they won, right?
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't have that conversation if they lost. I'm a poor sport.
I would have
yeah.
forgot about it. What I would have We know
So
that, Chuck.
you come from you wind up spending a lot of your career at University of California, Berkeley, right? Talk about that experience for a minute and how you got from Cal Berkeley to Providence.
Well, it's kind of a long story. I started a school called Union College in upstate New York, was the ice hockey and baseball coach and assistant AD. And my aunt lived in Southern California. And I visited her one Christmas and I was swimming in the Pacific Ocean and it was snowing in Union. I said, I'm moving west. I packed everything I owned. And I
Yeah,
literally went across country when I was 27. I was the first athletic director at a women's college called Mills College in Oakland, California. All my friends thought I was crazy. But I met my wife there, and it got me in 5 miles away from the University of California, Berkeley, and a job opened up for senior associate AD, and I applied for the job, and they hired me, and so I was in charge of football and basketball and all the sport teams at a very young age. Spent 15 years there, was the acting AD, and then didn't get the job. They gave it to my crew coach, and that's a whole nother story based on learning that if you have wealthy friends, you can get jobs that you perhaps don't deserve. So I decided I was going to move back home. I grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, and during the Ernie D era and the Dave Gavitt era and the Big East era, and I thought, maybe I'm gonna come back home and I can help this program with everything I learned at Cal, actually move it to the kind of next level. But Cal was a dream job for me. We had Jason Kidd at the time, Sharif Abdul Rahim, we had Tony Gonzalez, we were top 10 football, Sweet
yeah.
16 basketball. And so it was a great place. But when I didn't get the AD job, I was disappointed. And I'm a small town guy. I went to a small school and I thought I could really go back there in the Big East at Providence and do something special. And I was completely naive. When I got to Providence, I was interviewed and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, our facilities are as bad as any high school I've ever seen in my life." And the president called me in the office the next day and is going, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, "Father, if we don't do something about this, we're going to be thrown out of the Big East." And this is when the football schools are there and stuff. So
Right.
I went there and I thought I'd be there for a short time, but as a hockey player, they had Division One hockey, and my goal is to win a national championship. And I love basketball, and I thought, we can model what Villanova did. I said, if Villanova can do it, Providence can do it. And I'm proud to say that we won two Big East championships, got the Sweet 16, won three national championships, and did about a $500 million worth of brand new facilities. So I decided to stay, and it was great. I was with my mom and dad as they get older, and my son went there, and so it was a dream come true for me. And I love the Big East, and I'm still a Friar.
Well, and you
What
got a
was
national championship in hockey,
We did
2015, right?
2015, yeah.
Yeah, that's big up there, man. I know BU and BC and all those schools up there. It's real competitive in hockey up there in
That really is.
East, right? So talk about the facilities because it was interesting because when we were doing our due diligence here, Bob, because we are professional journalists, correct, Sonny? So
just
we
so you know?
it's not like we just throw the lights on. Sonny has a fancy background now. He
I
throws
see
everything up,
that.
.
I even got my
So
shirt on. Wait. I got my.
yeah,
That's
he's
it.
got a Big East
Oh,
shirt on.
no,
Look
you got to get that up.
at
I can't see that, man. That's good.
so
There you
there you
go.
go. There you go. There you
Represent,
go.
baby.
Don't
I
put any
can't figure
pressure
this
on your
camera
knees.
out. That's one thing I can't figure out.
So I saw some of the stuff that you said about, and you're right. I mean, it's a big deal when you walk in there as a recruit. You got to be wowed by some of the stuff that you have there. And Providence, we never got to play them on campus. We always played at what was the Dunkin'
Oh,
Donuts Center,
yeah.
I think,
Yeah, we
right?
played the Providence Civic Center when we played.
The
Yep.
Providence Civic Center, correct. That's it. So so we played there all the time. So we never got to even see the campus
Yeah.
until my daughter played at Bryant, and then I was on campus when they played Providence, a couple of times, which was a beautiful campus. It really is. And so you wound up overhauling the whole everything, like the practice facility for men's and women's hoops, right? And there was I can't even the fitness center. How do you say that? What was the name of the
Buchanan
fitness center?
Fitness Center.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about that because I think that, looking back at your career a little bit, that was a big part of your legacy, Bob, because you really upgraded everything, when you came there.
Well, I had this vision of being the model program in all of college athletics. And what I meant by that is, you graduate every student athlete, you treat everybody with dignity and respect, and you compete for championships in that order. And Providence had a great academic institution, but their facilities, their belief system, they didn't really think they could be great again. They were living in the past. And I learned from my coaches that you have a conversation of possibility. And so I challenged my staff, if you had unlimited resources, what could we be? And we started creating this and it started with baby steps. We started throwing out trash and painting facilities. And then we built our first facility and second facility. They weren't raising any money. I think we started out the first year was $300,000. By the time we left, it was 8 or 9. I know Steve has got it up to maybe 15 or $18 million a year for a small school. So it started with the belief. But if I also tell people, you have one chance to make a first impression. And if you're serious about athletics, when you walk in, it has to look like it's a big time place, like we had at Cal. And so you started with baby steps, but then we actually built it into, I think we have some of the nicest facility of any athletic program in the country. And it's how I attracted great coaches. But more importantly, I was able to keep those people because we supported them at a level. It wasn't a stepping stone, it was actually a destination. So we spent a lot of time and energy into that. But I'm a culture guy. I'm a coach by training, so I wanted to build the best culture. We together, Friars, and people bought into that, and it really got traction. And when we won our first Big East championship in 2014, then a national champ, people started believing. Admissions went up, fundraising went up. The whole state surrounded us. You can't buy a ticket in the Dunkin' Donuts Center. We renovated the Dunkin' Donuts Center. So, but it started with a spark, and I'm not taking the credit, but it was my belief that we could do it, and then everybody kind of jumped on board.
You know what I noticed too about the where they play now, all right? The student section is one of the wildest scenes probably in all of college
Mhm.
basketball, and definitely in the Big East.
Right.
It was hilarious because Mark Plansky and I were there for a game, and Mark's done color for ESPN and stuff, so he knew
Right.
everybody. So we're walking across the baseline where the student section
Yeah.
was, and we each had a V on our shirt. Obviously, we were,
Yeah.
representing. And
You
they
just want to
start
stir
booing
the
us.
pot.
They
Yeah.
start,
Right.
they start
Yeah.
booing us. I said, I
Yeah.
don't even. You kids weren't even born when we were playing.
It's
So
Friday.
I got a little. I put my ring up and I said, and I went like this, and I went, and they stopped immediately. So, and then they booed us again when we walked back. So I love the atmosphere there. I've been to a bunch of games, a bunch of Nova games there. I think it's great. Talk about that because they never had that when we were playing to that degree. I mean, it's outstanding. The vibe there is great.
Well, it was an idea I took from Cal. So if you went to a Cal Stanford game or whatever, and you walked in front of the student section, they'd start chanting, "Take off that red shirt." And if you didn't take it off, they'd take you and they'd roll you right out of the 80 rows out to the back.
That's
So
why.
we had a mic man that would get them cheering. So I had this idea: we'll have a mic man, we'll have Go Friars. We created Friartown. We created black. I created this black and white and silver. I modeled what they did at the Oakland Raiders because I lived in Oakland, so that we had those tougher kind of vibes. And then we hired a disc jockey before anybody had disc jockeys, and we started playing music and dancing, and it became a happening. And then the vibe took off, and the kids took off. Because right now, I bet we win 3 or 4 games a year on the energy in
Oh,
that.
I agree.
It's
I
become a
agree.
cult, but it started with these baby steps along the way, and now it's a pretty special place, right? It's not like going into one of those big NBA arenas where, this everybody's kind of flat. Kids are standing, they're crazy, and they're drinking beer too. We sell
Yeah,
beer
I
cheap.
saw that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So you couldn't do anything with the mascot. You changed the logo. The mascot looks like, he's not scary at all. Like the logo is intense now, the new logo. It's great. And you got our buddy DJ Finesse there now.
He's my guy. Well, I'll tell you the mascot story. So I created four different mascots. Like, I wanted a tough one, but the Dominicans, every time I create a mascot that didn't look like a Dominican with the beads and stuff, they go, no, send it back, send it back, send it back. So then we created the last one, and it was so ugly and so unattractive and so bad that it was getting unbelievable reviews. Like, people hated them so much. I said, "There's no such thing as bad branding and marketing because they know what the fryer is." So I said, "Let's keep it. People are talking about it, and the fryer can dance." So we spent a fortune on it. Next time you go to Providence, go down in the basement of the new Rain Center. We actually have a Hall of Fame for all the fryer heads that we had made over the years. And it's one of the funniest displays you'll ever see in terms of mascots.
That's great.
so
That's
you
great.
really started with the end in mind. You're like a absolute. That's a Stephen Covey Seven Habits, right? That
Yeah. Yeah. I have a
you
sports
saw what you
psychology
wanted.
degree.
Right?
Yeah, I have a sports psychology degree. I used to go to all these Tony Robbins kind of things, Zig Ziglar things, and
Yeah.
it's like I always had a vision. It's like the vision I had for my life. And if you can dream and think big enough and get people on board and you're obsessive enough, you can do it. But I love the creative process and building something from nothing. Like, I wouldn't find it challenging now in that environment because they have what they need. I'd rather go someplace it's like a startup and do it again. I'm too old now because I'd have a heart attack. But back then, you can go 24/7, right?
So what was the starting out the number one thing that you said this is what we have to do? Like this is it. Everything else is going to fall after this.
To change the belief, the mindset that anything is possible.
The belief that you can win.
That we can do this, because that's this conversation of possibility, and you can do this in your life. If you had a magic wand and can change anything you want in your life, what would it look like? Most people start out with, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough resources, we've never won. I go, no, time out. You can't have that conversation. Let's say we could. What would we create? So you start with the end in mind, then you break it back to bite-sized little chunks, and over a week, a month, or a year, or 20 years, if you're consistent enough, like water on a rock with a clear vision and the right people, you can get to the top of the mountain. I know that as clear as I'm sitting here today because my whole life has been about dreaming about stuff that isn't possible and then making it happen.
Dick's Sporting Goods, that's what they did when they created the House of Sports.
And
That's
they're building a big
exactly
one
what they
down
did.
here. Really? Is that
It's
right?
exactly what Dick Stack said. If we could build and someone came in across the street from us, what would they have that would put us right out of business? And then they had the list of activities, golf, baseball, rock climbing,
Ah,
ice skating. The whole design of that all came from exactly what you just described. That was great.
well, think about it. So we're looking at this one. I'm old enough to remember when there was no phone, right? Well, there's my grandson with his fryer.
Nice. With the new
Represent.
logo.
Uh, See, I got him his shirt. That's what you send for
Yep.
Christmas presents. But when you think of this, everybody takes this for granted. But you and I remember when there was no such thing, and this thing is more powerful than what helped the ship land on the moon in 1969. Somebody thought about this thing. Somebody created it, which is mind-boggling. So if they can do this, we should be able to win a championship, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, did you have any mentors when you were coming through into the Providence? Was Dave Gavitt,
Yeah.
did he kind of assist with you at all? Because we've had Danny on, and
Yeah.
we had Mike Tranghese on as well. And to hear the stories about
What
Dave,
insight that they
you
gave
talk
us.
about being ahead of your time, right, Bob? I mean, talk
Brilliant.
about that for a minute, if you will.
Brilliant. Well, that was a big thing that attracted me. I thought if Dave Gavitt was there and Lou Lamoriello was there and all these and Rick Pitino was there, I said
Morello.
it's a place for, championship kind of people. But Dave was very kind and generous. As soon as I got there, he took me out to lunch, and he was the president of the Celtics at the time. And the college at the time wasn't really supporting athletics, and so Dave helped me to put together what I called a vision team. And the vision team is comprised, I learned this at Cal. You put together a group of people, of donors and people like Dave Gavitt and business leaders and people that work with the Celtics and former players like Joey Hassett, and you sit in a room and say, hey, who do we want to be? So we want to win the Big East championships. What's it going to take? Well, it's going to take a lot of money. So first of all, people got to start raising money. So Dave hooked me up with all those folks. I'll tell you a quick story just about the power of relationships. So I needed to get the state to help us renovate the dunk. It's a $150 million deal. It was owned by the city. And so my coach, and I had a professional coach, his name was Roland Todd. He was the first NBA head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. So I had him for 20 years. He said, "What do you got to do?" I said, "We're going to build a new facility." He said, "Well, you can get that done." I said, "How am I going to get that done?" I said, "I don't know anybody." He says, "You know somebody that knows somebody that can help get that done." So Governor Carcieri was the governor at the time, and Dave Duffy, who was the brander for the Big East, you're looking at the Big East logo, Dave Duffy of Duffy and Shanley, Father Shanley's father, was part of that conversation. And he hooked me up. He said, "I'll set up an appointment with the governor," right? So I walk into the State House. What am I going to say to the governor? Okay, I need $150 million. But here's where the power relationships come in. I walk in, I meet a woman. She goes, "Hi, my name is Susan Carcieri." I go, "Hi, my name is Bob Driscoll. I'm here to see the governor." She said, "Well, I'll take you." She asked me where I grew up. I told her I grew up. She said, "Oh, that's interesting. Donald taught math at Concord Carlisle High School."
How about
I'm
that?
like, "Huh, my sister had your husband at Concord Carlisle High School. He also was an assistant football coach the year before I got there. I'm a football player." So we have this conversation. So now all my nerves go away. I walk in. She goes, "Donald, I want you to meet your former neighbor back in Concord, Massachusetts. This is Bob Driscoll." And he goes, "Hey, how can I help you?" We told all these stories. By the end of the conversation, a year later, the state bought the city out of the dunk, passed a referendum, and put $150 million in the building. Now, if my coach didn't tell me to go have this conversation, I don't meet Susan Carcieri and I don't know Donald from anything, but he didn't buy into this vision because of the state, none of that stuff happens. So
Wow.
it's powerful little
Yeah.
caveats that pop along, right? But Dave was instrumental in that because Dave knew everybody.
Yeah,
Dave,
of course. Yeah, and we've told this plenty of times. He was great at keeping everybody together. From back in the day when Sonny and I played, they had the um, luncheons before the Big East, the day before the Big East
yeah.
tournament, and he put two players from every team at the table, so you had to get to know everybody.
Hmm.
In the coaches meetings, I'll give you two examples. One is with Rick, and one's with Raph, but both with Coach Mass. Like Coach wasn't Mass wasn't getting along with Rafferty, so he made them sit in a golf cart together when they played golf. So they had no choice but to talk, and Raph was with them right until he took his last breath. And Patino wasn't. It didn't work out as well with Patino. Rick walked instead of sitting in the golf cart with Coach Massimino. So
But think about where we're sitting today, and you winning the national championship, and the league is better than it's ever been. That's my opinion of it.
yeah,
Doesn't happen without Dave's vision. And think about a visionary guy, right?
yeah, he was way ahead of his time. It was amazing to hear all the stories about him because, at that when I'm 19, 20 years old, at that point, I'm not thinking about, what Dave Gavitt did, but once you step back and do what all of us did, we all played in that conference, there's a brotherhood there. There really is. I mean, the only thing that's different is the color of your jersey, and it's amazing because doing this show, I'll say this to you. We've called guys, that I haven't spoke to maybe ever, but I threw elbows at some of them and they hit me. I swapped a lot of sweat with these guys and it was like, "Hey Chuck, how you doing? Good to," it was amazing, and guys from Pittsburgh, guys from, Seton Hall and stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun to realize like, and you become friends with these guys that you were always fighting against. Like, I'll give you a good example. Danny Calandrillo and I talk probably 3 times a month,
Mm.
and I never even, I might have been on the court with him my freshman year, but I
No,
never, he was really
no,
before
he
that, right?
graduated. Your
Yeah,
freshman
he
year,
was
he was
already
gone.
done. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it was, it's been great. So that's all because of Dave Gavitt. That's why
And
I,
by
Yeah,
the way, at those luncheon, the two Georgetown guys were not allowed to speak.
yeah,
they had their
yeah.
heads, as soon as
We've
Thompson put his
established that.
hand up, their
Yeah,
heads dropped. I said, "Hey, that's a pretty good trick. How do you do that?" You guys he just dropped their heads right away. So, um, talk about, your relationship with Ed Cooley now, because Ed was first of all, we love Ed. Ed was great. He came on and he was gracious with his time. He actually gave me his cell phone number and said, "Don't call my girl. Call me directly. I'll come
Mhm.
back on." So he's been awesome with us, and
That
I know
charisma.
you were pretty close with him. Talk about his run there and your relationship with Ed.
Well, I hired Ed
That was a
after.
good hire. That was a
Yeah, it
good
was good.
hire.
Well, I learned I made some bad hires in my life, but I figured out what works at Providence. I tried to hire the models of what I would have hired at the University of California, but we had more cachet, more power, more money. Everybody wanted to work there. But I brought that ethos to Providence and didn't realize we didn't have, I had my energy and personality, but I didn't have the facilities, the money, or the stuff. But Ed, it's interesting. Ed used to come visit me when I first got to Providence, and he was at BC, and he lived in the neighborhood. And we'd just talk, and I really liked his energy. And we had a relationship long before I ever thought about Ed as a coach, right? It was before he went to Fairfield. But I always get attracted to energy and passion and people that believe they can do great things. And you've talked to Ed. He has that it factor and will and grit and toughness that, given his background and how he grew up, the fact that he's created what he's created, I thought, there's a guy that I think if I coach and mentor and support him, and the college supported Ed immensely, and we give him everything he needed, we can be successful. And if you look what we as an organization from the top down, from Father Shanley to Father Sicard to me to the trustees to Ed, it was really unprecedented. And it's hard to sustain that. Coach English is going to do a great job. He's young, he's very talented. I have all the faith in the world in those folks. But the league has gotten better, and with the money situation, it's gotten more competitive. But Ed is a man that is a special coach, and look what he's already done. He's 4-0 this year, and but he's really driven, and he's a relationship guy, right? He's a relationship guy. So we're still friends. Um, I was disappointed that he left Providence, but he needed to go to a place that he thought was right for him and his family, and I respect that.
Yeah, he's done a great job over there. I mean, and listen, and he's caught a lot of heat, you know. I mean, he was
Yeah,
beloved until he left.
yeah,
So everybody at Providence was mad, and that happens.
yeah.
You see it now with Kevin Willard. The people from Maryland are not happy with him, and that's somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose, you know. But he what he did, and I don't know if you know this or not, he got on the phone with the Georgetown alumni, basketball alumni. He had about 70 guys on a Zoom call. That has never happened before at
Yeah.
that university. Like there are places, Providence is one, Villanova is one where everybody's close, you know. Um, the Georgetown guys, not so much. And it was funny because Reggie Williams was on the call, and Reggie's a very quiet guy, and we got to know Reggie very well through what we do here. And Gene Smith called me and told me about the call and said Reggie was the first guy to speak up, and Ed stopped in his tracks and said, "You were my favorite player when I was growing up. You were my favorite player. What anything you want? What do you? We need you to come by. We need you guys to come back." And he embraced everybody. And
Yeah.
now more, I'm not saying it's a ton yet. It's a work in progress, but a lot of the former players come back now on a regular basis. Where when Patrick was there, not so much. It was tough, you know.
Yeah,
So
the culture's changed. I mean, Ed's changed the culture,
yeah,
and it's inclusive.
Yeah.
he,
Well,
and
here's the deal. It's needed more than ever, and I'm a culture guy because it's become more transactional. You pay somebody money, they give you, but you don't win championships without people working collaboratively together. The best talented team doesn't always win the game. So it's about relationships. It's about your players, your coaches, the presidents, the trustees, the fans, everybody that touches your program. So the job is bigger than just this. The great ones do this, which takes more time and energy. And I think it will resonate more now than ever because if it's all about I pay you, you do this, people want to be respected and admired. And at the end of the day, hopefully the kids will get their degrees because they might make a lot of money right now. But if you're not getting your degree, what are you going to do for the next 50 years in your life?
exactly,
So
exactly.
so I got to ask you, you're at Providence, you've got this
Yeah.
great vision and idea, and all of a sudden the Big East is being torn apart.
Yeah.
What was your first gut reaction to seeing that? As a Syracuse guy, I did not want us to leave the Big East.
Right.
I'll say it till my deathbed. I thought it was a bad move, but
Yeah.
Money is money, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I knew it was going to happen because I sat in those meetings with all those football guys. And I was a football guy. I was in charge of the University of California football. So I know how football schools think and how much time and money we spend at the University of California on football as compared to basketball. So I knew when the time was right because Miami was chipping a little bit and BC and Syracuse because Jake, he was kind of the last man standing. When he saw the dominoes fall, he didn't have any choice. But Jake is an old school guy and his
Jake
word
is a
meant
football guy.
he's a football guy too, but he loved the Big East and he felt loyal to it along the way. But when that started happening, I actually, with my right hand person that I had hired as a GA, who was a lawyer, and with Vince Nicastro, we started creating what if scenarios and started creating a list and doing the research on if they left, what schools would fit for us. So when it did finally happen, I went to my president and handed him this binder. And then we got very fortunate too. Father Shanley and Jack DeJoy and the Fox Sports One was starting. And then we got those great teams coming in. And then I with Ed and Father Shanley and other people, Val, wanted to go back and revisit with UConn. Like if Providence put up a stink on that, it may not have happened. But Ed was such a teammate, and Father Shanley was. And I said, hey, if you want to win a national championship, you want to be the best, you got to play the best. And so with David Benedict and the folks down there, although our people were upset at first, I'm thinking, Connecticut is a huge brand for us. So let's help bring them back. So I think we worked through it. We got a little lucky, but we had a plan. And I think we ended up in a much better place, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd love to have Syracuse still here, but Syracuse got to deal with football.
Hmm.
We don't have to
Right.
deal with football, right?
When it was the Catholic Seven, right?
Yeah.
You still had that vision of UConn and of all that stuff?
Not initially. UConn was later in the conversation
Right.
because we got the other three schools that came in that failed. That was, we were at 10, which was perfect. But then Fox, it's about money, it's about TV. And if you really
Yeah.
think about UConn and their brand around the country, it's like, why wouldn't you want them part of the Big East Conference? They're old Big East Conference as well. So that helped us with Fox. It certainly helped us with the brand. And then they win championships, just like it raises all ships. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And some people paused at it. Well, if somebody comes along, they'll leave. But if they get a better deal and they can make a lot more money playing football, if somebody wants them, I would never fault them for doing that. But right now, I think it's great. They're in the Big East, to be honest with you. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen, it didn't miss a beat as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they kept rolling, and since the new changeover in 2013, right?
yeah,
There's four national championships in the
yeah.
conference, which is pretty good, and it's competitive every year. I think we got robbed a little bit last year. We could have had a couple more teams in the dance, but other than that, I mean, I think it's been very competitive. And if you talk to people that were there back when we played, and if you talk to those people that are there now, it's still a very physical conference to the point where they almost are physical to the point of hurting themselves in the tournament when you get an official that doesn't ref their games normally in the Big East. And now all of a sudden they're seeing referees that they haven't seen before, and they don't know that a little forearm bump is part of the game and not a foul.
A little
So
say hello to the lane
yeah,
message.
right, right. We used to call that bumping the cutter, Bob.
Bump the
That's what.
cutter. Yeah.
So we used to bump a lot of cutters, especially me in the
I watched
middle.
all those games. I watched the fist fights and the wrestling matches that went on.
You never know. I mean, if you're playing Georgetown, you got to be ready because as soon as the referee threw the ball up, five guys fouled five
I know.
guys, and he
I
couldn't call
know.
all of them.
Yeah.
So
And
I
we've
I say
established
that
a
to
precedent.
this day. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Now I think your timing has been impeccable. With your career, especially at Providence, because you got in, and you were able to do what you did and rebuild everything. And when you get out, they win the regular season Big East championship and go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Okay. And so talk about that for a second. That was a great year. I mean, Kim has done an awesome job. And
Yeah.
and I
Great.
think, I love the way his relationship is with his guys. It
Yeah.
comes across,
Authentic.
very genuine. He's the kind of guy that I would think Sonny would agree with me. He's the kind of guy we would have loved to play for, you know.
Yeah,
He's a player's guy, but he means business.
And he's demanding. Yeah.
And they got to a level, and then all of a sudden, you got the NIL and the portal, and I think the portal is the bigger culprit than the NIL,
I agree.
personally,
Yeah,
because if you can't, again, we talked about culture briefly. It's difficult to do anything if you got 12 new guys on your team every year.
right.
So first of all, talk about Kim and how what you got. Obviously, you hired him too, right?
No, I didn't. Steve Napolillo, my associate that I mentored throughout my career, actually hired Kim, so I wasn't there at the time. But I don't know Kim well. I know Steve really well, and I think he's doing a heck of a job at Providence. He's got a challenge,
Yeah.
but he's also raised a great deal of money, so they're as competitive as anybody in terms of the money they can
Oh
spend
yeah,
on people. So kudos to Steve and the college for that. And if you think of Kim, he's a very young coach that's really competitive and is going to be really, really good. And hopefully this year. But think of some of the coaches that he's competing against right now. You've got Hall of Famers, people that have been there. And, Ed was a much different coach his last year than his first 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
yep,
He had 5 years as head coach. So, I mean, I was probably not a great AD at 49, but I was a pretty good AD at 69, right? So
yep,
20 years of learning. So you have to give people some grace and time to learn and learn the culture. So they're going to be great. I think it's a great hire, and I think he's going to be really solid. And the college is really committed to it. In terms of timing for me, the only reason I retired is I've got a wife and kids and grandkids, and my job was 7 days a week for almost 50 years, and you don't know how long you're going to be on this planet. So out of respect for my family, I decided to retire, but I have this executive coaching. I coach ADs, I coach coaches, so I'm kind of still in the game, sharing my knowledge. But I would be lying if I told you I didn't miss the locker room, I didn't miss the practices, I didn't miss the games. I almost don't miss losing because I get wake up the next morning and think, how can we get better? There's not, you guys know as athletes, there's
yeah,
nothing better than the competition, and I feel like I'm on the outside looking in.
yeah.
And, um,
It's tough. It's tough. Also, now get into the at the we talked a little bit about the portal. Get into the
yeah,
portal and the stuff like that and the NIL for a minute, if you would, because what bothers Sonny and I and we've talked about this. You had a couple last year. Seton Hall's best player
yeah.
winds up at St. John's because they were able to pay him more money. This year, Bryce
Um,
Hopkins leaves Providence and comes to St. John's for the same reason. Back when we played, the school if I left Villanova and went to go play at St. John's, I'd have to sit out 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
2 years.
So
Yeah.
so that
Oh,
kind of
it
rubs
never
us the
happened.
wrong way, being old school guys.
Yeah,
But
it
talk
never
about
happened.
talk about the portal and your thoughts on that and the NIL stuff.
Well, it's not going back. I think we mishandled it. The NCAA is about the ADs and everybody else that didn't see it coming. All these lawsuits, as the NCAA kept losing lawsuits after lawsuits, we thought we could create that, hey, you can't transfer because you'll sit out and lose eligibility. But coaches go from one place to the next. So, you're going to lose those things. I think there should be some rules that don't allow them to transfer more than once, minimum twice, because you've got some kids that have transferred 4 different times, and the statistics have shown every time you transfer, the likelihood of you graduating or actually taking real classes and getting out with a degree completely diminishes. So you maybe get a short-term gain. If you're saving your money, you make a lot, but a long-term kind of loss. It's not, I don't think it's helping the student athletes. It certainly doesn't help with the fans' connection to the players, right? It's this free agency stuff
Yeah,
doesn't help. And I don't think it's not easy on the coaches. How do you build, and I listened to you talk to Kevin, how do you build a culture when you've got all different players coming in almost every year? Whereas you look at Shaka Smart, I don't think he's changed anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I think the money they deserve some money. The problem is the agents are getting a lot of that money. I don't know where the money's going for the
yeah.
kids. I'm happy to see it that way. But what's going to end up happening, I think, is a lot of the sports that you're carrying, they're either going to be downgraded to local sports or non-scholarship, or they're going to start cutting sports in order to afford the high profile ones. Because there's not a lot of schools making money off their football and basketball programs, maybe 40, 50, but most of them come Providence. We spend a lot of money, but we don't balance the books and budgets. Villanova doesn't either. So, but I
No,
think
no.
that horse has left the barn, and I hope at some point they can put some guardrails on it because right now it's a bit of a free for all. I'll be honest with you.
But Bob, you said it, and I remember having the conversation with someone at Villanova after they won the national title. I think it was the second one. I think it was 2018. And they said applications tripled for getting into school. So you can raise your tuition, the benefits, the balancing part. I don't know if that fits in the equation, but I have two nieces, th and one, three nieces really, and one went to Alabama, one went to South Carolina, one went to West Virginia, and they were not really athletic, but they wanted to go to a school that had those things. They
Hmm.
loved their experience there, and they were really, really hard to get into those schools.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
people that are not promoting the athletic component are missing a part of that college experience that people want to be a part of,
You're
you know?
spot You're spot on. And I used to sell that, hey, the reason we invest in it is the brand. And I love Providence, but I said without Big East basketball, we'd be a nice, competitive, regional Catholic institution in the Northeast versus
Yeah.
a national and at times international brand. You know, Syracuse, great school, but much bigger, a lot more resources than a school like Villanova or Providence. But think of the brand that Villanova is now, today. Rowley was great, but that was old school. Under the two championships they won, Providence
hmm
now, everything kind of went up. And if demographics are going down, there are fewer men students want to go to colleges. So your competition is going to be greater. It's why the Northeast is losing all their students to go to the SEC because they see the band, the cheerleaders running on the ground. But our kids want to come because they want to go to Madison Square Garden and do their social media stuff. So it's really important, I think, from the branding of the institution in the Big East to continue to invest in it because I think you lose your brand if you weren't in that arena. People would die to come to the Big East. You know
Well,
how many
well,
people want to play in the Big East?
Oh yeah,
you
we
have a
know.
passionate you have a passionate fan base. Like when we were around in the tournament and we were hanging out in some of the bars and places close
Yeah.
by, the Providence people are lunatics.
Yes, I
And
agree.
let me ask you, because you talked about building that. At what point did you see that tide turn when you felt, hey, our people, our troops are energized? When did that happen?
It took some time. Tim Welsh had it going a little bit early on, but that was
I
the
know
over.
Tim really well. Yeah.
Really, Tim's a great guy. But the bad facility, he had nothing. I mean, he did it with smoke and mirrors, and he got Ryan Gomes, God bless him. And then I hired Keno Davis, which really didn't work out at all, unfortunately. And it wasn't until Ed came, and you've heard him speak, and he gets up in front of groups he can move the audience and get people to believe. And he wasn't afraid to say, "We're going to win Big East championships. We want to compete for a national team." Most people don't put their butt on the line. And the difference was that Ed spoke that truth, and we all bought into it because we bonded to it, and then we delivered on it. But we went in 2014 when we won the Big East championship in Madison Square Garden the whole thing flipped just like that. And then we went year after year after year. We were going to go during the pandemic year as well. So he'd had eight in a row, then got the Sweet 16, and then kids started getting injured, and then Ed left. But it was as good as any college basketball environment that I'd been in, really.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
But
Yeah.
see, but it does. If you don't invest, you don't win, and if you don't win, the other part doesn't take place. So the people that poo-poo sports is, oh, it's just a jock, it's just a cheerleader mentality. No, you don't understand what it does for the university, for the people who now take out their old college sweaters and are like, yeah, I went to Binghamton University
Right.
where I live, right? Like, yeah, I went to Binghamton because
Right.
now we've got a baseball program and we got people
Right.
investing in that. But it takes that getting over that hump.
Well, we're the only game in town. There's no pro sports in Rhode Island. It's a small state. It's been
Yep.
there since the 70s. And Ernie D and those guys went downtown. So it is what people do in the winter. People in Rhode Island were born and raised generation after generation. So it's the pro sport team and they're vibrantly passionate about it. It's hard, it's easier for us than it is for you at Villanova because you got the Flyers, you got
Right.
all the pros. We don't know you got Boston 50 miles up the road
Right.
in Rhode Island because of where we are in the history of the Big East starting there and the successor. Our fans are as rabid as anybody I've ever been around. And sometimes it's overboard, but there's a fine line because when they're humming, they're into it. It's pretty electric.
But Chuck and I have had this conversation specific to NIL money,
Yeah,
right? So you got a kid who's at Villanova. Why would some business say, I got the Sixers, I got,
right.
this, but in the state of Rhode Island, if I have a car dealership,
Yeah.
right? Did that attract, did that actually come to bear? Like, did that become reality?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because we have a lot of donors that own these dealerships and stuff, and they want the best players doing those kinds of things. And what we've done a really good job is cultivating the passion that a lot of the people that went to Providence in the 60s and 70s and 80s now that have made some money and are competitive people want to see us win, they're willing to give back in order to be an investor in the team. It's like being a stock owner, and they're invested in that, and it's why we've been successful. And to think about where we started, where we're giving tickets away to now when I created those seat licensing on the ground that I took from Cal and where to go, it's one of the toughest tickets to get because that's where you want to be seen, right?
Yep.
But it's
You're right.
fragile. You start losing and you don't put a good product on the court, it can go away just like
Just
that.
like that. That's right.
There's more pressures than AD. You raise all this money and you're paying kids and then you don't win. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
will
Yep.
turn on you.
So, so I got to ask you, we talked about culture a little bit and how that works with all the stuff that's in the background of college sports today. But I got to tell you, I think the Providence Friars and Friartown and the whole thing, I think that they have a great thing going on. And I loved the event that you guys had a couple of years ago when you had the coaches summit and you had all those basketball alums come back.
Yeah,
Harold Starks and whoever helped him with that did a fantastic job. You had, I mean, even Coach Barnes was sick and he came in on a
yeah,
video.
yeah,
You had, and to be honest with you, Bob, I didn't realize the rich history
yeah.
that was at Providence and the great players and coaches. Talk about that event for a minute and tell us about that because I really enjoyed the videos and all the stuff that was on social media about it. And I spoke to Harold about it at length because I'm kind of that guy at Villanova, like
Yeah.
Harold is with you guys, you know?
Well, we made a conscious decision when I got there, and I give Steve Napolillo a lot of the credit as well. As a kid who grew up in Providence basketball, went there. Our first big event was celebrating the Final Four team with Rick and Billy and those folks, and we brought them all back down to the dunk, and we must have had 10,000 people there, and we had Raph back there interviewing, and it was the first time we brought it all together. And then we said we've got to do this more often. So we started Hall of Fame inductions and bringing people back. And the last one was how do you celebrate the rich history and tradition of. So what we've done a really good job was reaching out to all these folks that went through Providence and may have felt disenfranchised and nobody's reached out to. We've done a really good job reaching out and saying thank you, bringing them back, honoring them at halftime, letting them engage with the fan. So it's like all of us against all of you, right? We're small, but we're mighty. But that takes energy and passion, and it's pretty cool when you think of the people that have gone through Providence College, starting with Dave Gavitt, and it's the legacy of being a little tiny school that did great stuff. So, but that takes energy. You got to want to do it. The bigger schools have a easier time because they have more people, but the smaller schools can make it more intimate and close and just feel like I'm part of the
Yeah,
family, right?
you have to lean into that, right? You really
Yeah,
do. Instead of
yeah,
saying, well, what we don't have, what do we have?
exactly.
And just lean into it and own it. That's cool.
Yeah. And that's the fun part, right? When you going around, see what I wanted to do, because when I was at Cal, we had the if you had a Cal jersey on, you could be in China, you go by people, you go Bears, go Bears. Everybody had this pride, and no one had the pride there at Providence. So I wanted people to talk about, I'm wearing my black and white and silver. Fridays, the whole campus wears black and white and silver. When you see people, you hey, go Friars. We called it Friar Town, which I took from Boys Town, but I thought, hey, it's not a nation it's a town, it's intimate. So all those little things added up from wristbands that said every day is game day, and people like being part of something bigger than themselves. And then you add success to it, it just goes poosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the recipe for success right there, Bob. I mean, you
That's
get
a
it, you
perfect
get all
story.
that stuff, put it all together, and boom, look what happened, right?
That's how the Big East with ESPN and all that stuff and the coaches, and you had a
Yeah.
lot of factors that hit at the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was
we
amazing.
got very, you could say fortunate, but I think we were prepared. And then what the teams and the colleges, and God bless the presidents, they were all in and they invested and they put money in their programs. Every school now has a practice facility. Everybody's got bells and whistles. Everybody's all in because the presidents understand that, hey, it's our brand. We've got to invest in it.
And it
Yeah.
pays off academically,
Yes.
right? You don't have to say this is just a jock thing, you know?
Right.
Well, it's interesting because Providence has done such a great. They built a business school that took off because of the profile, and lacrosse helped that. Then they just built a nursing school. So I really believe the pride and success that athletic has created, and I'm not taking the credit for it. I'm saying we collectively started this domino. Hey, we can be great here. Maybe we'll be great here. Wait, and
Yep.
it starts to spread. And Chuck, I'll say I used your program. I used Villanova as the model. Every time they said you can, I go, look at those guys over there, right there. They
Yeah.
can do,
Right.
it. We can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So I got to ask you, I mean, we're getting up against it, but
Yeah.
I was told to ask you this.
From
I
who? From
I
who?
I need to know what happened at the Capitol Grill when you came to the rescue of a couple of patrons at the Capitol Grill.
This might be a little hockey story, no? This might be a little
Might be.
5 minutes for roughing. No, no.
I would like to admit it. So I'm a guy that's always stuck my nose as a hockey player with no teeth. If there was something going on that somebody needed to be defended from some boyfriend beating up their girlfriend to a guy that broke into a car at my old college and attacked it. So I have this thing of sticking my nose in places I don't belong. But I was sitting at the Capitol Grill. I think I was like 68 at the time. And I've got all these injuries from playing sports. I got a bad back, a bad neck and stuff. But my dad was a boxer. So he taught me how to box. So I was always pretty comfortable with it. But I still think I'm 25 years old and I'm
So do
not.
we all, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I hear this
I'm paying the
screaming,
price.
right? I'm hearing all this screaming and yelling and stuff going on in the corner. And I run into the bar and some of my guys that work at Capitol Grill, they were in a wrestling match and a fight with these young guys, right? So I'm sitting there going, okay, should I jump into the fray? Should I not jump into the fray? And I could hear my wife saying, don't do it, don't do it. And luckily, one of my assistant women volleyball coach, who's about 6'4", 245 pounds, walks in and he goes like this. He says, Coach, I got this. And he pushes me aside. He grabs the two guys like this and he walks them out the door and just fires them right out the door.
Wow.
And I went home at night and I said, Kath, I feel like such a loser. I said, I feel like I've lost my mojo. I said, and she said, if you got in a fight in there and got knocked out, she said, I've never talked to you. Now's not the time to get killed.
Right.
So
Right.
I passed my torch to the youngers. But when he said, Coach, I got this, he just pushed me out of the way like I was a little gnat. I go, thank you. Thank you very much. So the real question is, who told you that story?
Oh, you know who told me. Come on. I told our guy. Come on.
So you could say that when someone says they've been thrown out of a bar, you've seen someone thrown out of
Thrown out.
Like
Yeah,
this.
man. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Sometimes you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, Bob. You know what I
You
mean?
gotta,
So that
you
was a
not
gotta,
as
nice
you
good
move,
as I
smart
once
move that
was.
the
Still the
guy
key.
helped you out with that, you
gotta
know?
know when to take a knee,
But
right?
you hockey players have got that whole thing. I'm friends with Eddie Hospodar, who played with the Rangers and the Flyers, and he's the nicest guy in the world off the court. I mean, off the ice. You get him on the ice, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I know the mentality. It's a
Yeah.
switch that goes like that, you know?
Yeah. Nowadays, you don't know. In the old days, you might get when you were a kid, you might get punched out. Now you get shot. So it's
Yeah,
not.
right. Different ball game now.
Oh,
Correct. Correct. Well, I got to say, thank you so much. I really, truly enjoyed this conversation
Yeah,
with
me
you.
too.
Thank you.
Really appreciate, it was great getting to know you and hearing your story. Really, really unbelievable. It was a real success story, and thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I
Thank you.
appreciate you guys keeping the Big East alive, going back in the history and stuff. It's very cool because I started listening to it and I'm going to be a regular subscriber now. So thanks for your good work and love for the Big East. It's very
Yeah,
special.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hang out for a few minutes. We'll wrap this up and we'll
Okay,
give you a proper
great.
I can
goodbye.
see why
Okay?
you go into executive coaching though, because I mean, a lot of the stuff that I learned in like in my business and stuff, I hear coming right out of your mouth.
Yeah,
It's
man.
fun to pass it on, right? If you got to share something with the young folks and they need it. I think people need it more than ever, right, Sonny?
100%.
Yeah, I agree.
Just
I agree.
personally get disconnected. Like you said, the phone, that's the connection now. It's not us.
Yeah.
No, no.
Well, you've been listening to and watching the Big East Rewind with Sonny Sparrow and Chuck Everson. The Big East Rewind is produced and directed by Daryl Gurney, Nick Chico Corus, and James Hapt. Catch us on the SiriusXM app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. We just want to say happy Thanksgiving and blessings to you and your families. Okay?
Yep. Happy
Thanks a lot for
Turkey Day.
joining us. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.